So my name is Tracy Huzzie, and my paper is over excessive force in peaceful encounters, and we'll be reviewing some of those cases. So my thesis is we're going to analyze the way Florida specifically views excessive force in individual cases, and we're going to review police protections and our protection from the police, and I'll consider solutions to combat against the plague to our communities. Plague being that it's just affected so many lives at this point across the nation, and families, majority of the time, don't get their just due from the judicial process. So the biggest keys that we'll focus on is reviewing police protections in Florida excessive force cases. So about that thesis, so police protections is very broad for the purposes of this PowerPoint, but police protections would include what are our own protections of policing ourselves or from the police, or police's protection from, policing us. And one of them is that an officer needs probable cause to make an arrest, which means they just can't pull you. They need reasonable suspicion, and these are some of the interchangeable phrases that just mean that they need to have a valid reason to search a vehicle, or when making an arrest or searching you. I mean, it could be an actual searching of different things. It could be a searching of a house, apartment, whatever they're searching. They just need to have probable cause. As far as arrest, Chapter 901 of Florida Statutory Code, it doesn't specify Florida in this, but it says that the state is permitted to use reasonable force when making an arrest or to defend themselves or others from harm, but the use of excessive force is prohibited and may result in disciplinary action or criminal charges against the officer. So the reason why this is such a big deal in our Florida Statutory Code is because it specifies that excessive force is illegal. So it says that it may result in disciplinary action, but goes as far as to say that it can also be criminal charges as well. So disciplinary action might be, being, not actually being able to work, for a while on the force. Maybe you can't be in the field for a little while, right? So maybe you're stuck in the office. You may get your hours cut short, right? You may lose some pension. I don't know, but there's multiple different things that they can do more on a civil level to disciplinary you. As far as criminal charges could be, anything that's just straight up like battery, right? You're just beating, a suspect. So these are all things that could fall into the lines of criminal charges for an officer, and things that are outside of their protection, which is just outright being a criminal. Obviously, at that point, it's not anything else. As far as precinct policy, these precinct policies can vary from district to district, but for the most part, they all have different actions around how excessive force cases are handled. So they may tell you need to report it, right? You need to report it to the higher up chiefs and let them know that the case even happened. They also they may have to, have some specific documentation around the incident happening. So there's different levels of actions that they may have as far as what that goes. But some of that policy is outside of reporting, could even be we're going to report or even how to actually respond to a situation like that when making an arrest. So the arrest, what's actually allowable within the lens of arrest, it will vary, and you can use this kind of chokehold, but you can't use this one, or maybe only in these circumstances you can do these methods. And those, some more specification around what they can do at their police department and what their powers actually are. So one case is in 2019, black male Tymar Crawford was fatally killed in Pensacola, Florida. Detective Simon is the one who fired shots at him, 7 shots specifically, in response to him grabbing his taser. So Tymar grabbed his taser, and the officer fired some fatal blows. And his constituents, or the other officers that were on the scene, they seemed just as surprised that the shots were fired. And it's really just a case to really look at, because Really, I mean, as far as the officer, he could say that his life was threatened, and he could say that he feared for his life. But I mean, no reasonable person is going to be fearing for their lives when just because their taser is grabbed. Um, and lethal force should only be used when it's in self-defense of other lethal force, right? Because that's the only thing that would match it. So just because Tymar may have used the force to pull the taser away and he may have felt nervous, and regardless, that was wrong on his part. And then there's implications for what can happen from doing that. But as far as it being actual lethal force or him showing a higher degree of threat, it wasn't there for him to die, unfortunately. So the family's still mourning his loss. And if you look at some of the news reports, it's hard for them to even speak about it publicly. They don't even talk about it at this point. So there's other cases, but this is one of the main ones recently. So excessive force affects us all. That's why this is important. So why is this topic and argument important? Well, it's important because excessive force affects everyone. It starts with an unfortunate victim of police. Someone gets dragged out of their car. A woman or man gets unnecessarily pulled over and has a lot of aggressive energy. And, maybe there's some non-compliance from the victim at this standpoint. But, a victim is usually injured or beat or whatever the case may be. Police brutality is not always necessarily lethal, but it may just be, over aggression or, damaging someone physically. And then what happens next is that the families mourn that loss of that individual. So, all of us, if we were to deal with a case like that, we would mourn that loss, and then we would lose trust in the people who were supposed to be protecting us. Because these police officials, what they do day to day is to protect our lives, and the whole point is to prevent other crimes from happening, and we would least expect the crime to come from the people who are protecting us from the crime. So we lose trust in those cases. The government reviews these cases favorable to the officers majority of the time, right? So when these officers review these cases, when the examiners review cases, they're usually favorable to the judgment of the officers and their decision making, and they've been sided with in case law too often for getting their feelings and emotions considered more than the victim themselves. As far as another thing is that officers don't normally get disciplined when they do behavior, so this behavior repeats over time, right? So after an officer has got away with little infractions that are all related to police brutality or not, but specifically with police brutality, it needs to be addressed with a higher degree of discipline. But no officer should be in and out of different things, whether it's little small things with gambling or whatever a civil infraction may be, speeding, and they've just been in disciplinary for other reasons. There just needs to be a stronger disciplinary process outside of excessive force, but just disciplining officers in general. And then over time, what happens is it affects us because we're more likely to become a victim after these cases aren't handled properly, right? Because over time, these cases are more likely to happen if they're getting away with these cases, right? There's no punishment. And these officers are going to use this as an opportunity to flex their power because they know they will get away with it. It's not thinking they will or feeling like they will get away with it. They know that case law is going to support them and take their best interests in review. So this whole conversation of excessive force is important because it's a plague to our local communities, and we need to uphold legal protections for victims, specifically the Florida Crime Bill of Rights. It was just revised in 2018, but it basically writes out exactly what crime victims actually have, and a crime victim could be someone who's a victim of police brutality itself. I mean, if someone's getting battery or any of these kind of cases that's happened to them, then I mean, they have this code of protection within our state, that they be treated with fairness and respect, and that they have the right to be heard and present during proceedings, because these are important, because beforehand these things weren't really considered, and the fact that there's actually specific lines that write out exactly how we should treat a victim, and letting in fairness and respect, and like, what is fairness and respect? And fairness and respect might be, them literally not getting summary judgment as soon as the case is under review, or having the right to be heard and present during the entire process. So making sure that they're able to see the faces of the victims, and the faces are able to see the faces of their aggressors, right? And these kind of things are all important to the actual victim themselves. So as far as gaps in previous literature, one of the main issues is that there's not many recent excessive force cases in Florida within the past 10 years. So it's gotten insufficient treatment. We just haven't really seen it happen as often. As far as the Crime Victim Bill of Rights, it was just recently expanded, which we just kind of went over, and that there just needs to be more cases to arise to uphold the integrity of its importance, right? Like, the Crime Victim Bill of Rights is important, but we haven't seen cases concerning that, or have that particular bill in question enough to really see how powerful it is and how our courts are really going to uphold it and treat it. As far as more common legal situations, majority of the time, more common legal situations that come up, maybe, traffic infractions, or, which consists of speeding, or our run-ins with police are just more common in other different areas. And we're just not really seeing many excessive force incidents, even on a day-to-day level. So, findings and opinions. Some of the findings is that I found and I discovered through my research is that a responsive technology portals policing project. It was a piloted technology. Some researchers from Yale and other places actually put this piece of technology together so that victims can have conversations with each other and express dialogue about what the environment of policing was in their area. So neighbors get to speak with each other about what they kind of feel is going on. So these kind of technologies we should start incorporating more often and making them more available. They're only in Milwaukee, Los Angeles, and some other major places right now, but we just need to expand the access to that technology. Victims in Florida have recent consideration, so we're just recently getting considered, and low profile cases don't have enough media attention. We just don't really see cases arise much in Florida for police brutality. We see a lot of shootings, we see a lot of murder. I mean, we see a lot of different crimes, but not necessarily police brutality or lethal force or anything regarding excessive. And then it was kind of cool to find out during research that policies actually govern specific behavior during arrest. Like, it's not just statutory code, but they actually develop their own in-house city department-specific codes that they have to follow. So as far as my opinion on all that, is that we definitely need to leverage those technologies more. We need to know our legal protections a lot better within the state, and kind of having a better consciousness of like what we actually have to defend ourselves. Low profile cases need to receive more attention, just so that we can really show a no tolerance on it from a public standpoint. We need to hold officers more accountable. They need more disciplinary actions, right? They need to be, it needs to maybe not always be civil. If it's criminal, if the elements meet criminal, we need to make sure we're matching them there. And then we need stricter policies of what's acceptable for police behavior. So their own in-house policies need to be stronger. And we, the people, should understand our national protections, statutory protections, case law, to strengthen our response to qualified immunity when officers go against the very rules they enforce. Qualified immunity is the system or government protecting these officers within their own realms. They usually get to examine and review their own cases. And when they do that, they blur the lines. We lose trust in the very people that are supposed to be protecting us.